Hello, my name is Crystalline Lee, and I am an English major here at Albany State University, post-secondary, and I minor in special education. And today I'm presenting my research titled Affirmative Action in the U.S. versus India. And this project compares how the United States and India use affirmative action to expand access to higher education. And my thesis argues that both systems increase opportunity for marginalized groups, but each one faces challenges surrounding fairness, effectiveness, and long-term equity. So, moving on, we start with our background and thesis. And affirmative action is one of the most debated issues in global education because it deals with fairness, justice, and opportunity. Inside of the United States, affirmative action focuses on primarily race, but in India, their system is more known as reservations, and it focuses on caste. And even though these systems come from different histories, different backgrounds, different traditions, both countries created them to address discrimination and increase access to higher education. And my thesis states that while both systems expand access, they continue to face challenges in fairness, effectiveness, and long-term educational equality. So the U.S. historical context. So, inside of the United States, affirmative action emerged during the Civil Rights Movement, which began in the 1960s. And President John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, they introduced Executive Orders 10925 and 11246, which require institutions to take proactive steps to prevent discrimination. So these policies, they eventually shaped college admissions, where race-conscious practices were introduced to promote diversity and address historical inequalities. Key U.S. court cases. A number of Supreme Court cases, they shaped how affirmative action functions today. In Regents of University, California versus Bake in 1978, the courts, they banned strict racial quotas, but they allowed race to be considered as a factor among many. But, in 2003, Greta versus Bollinger, they reaffirmed that diversity was a compelling state of interest. And most recently, in 2023, the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard, they ruled that race-based admissions, they're unconstitutional and forcing universities to explore race and race-neutral alternatives. So that's what they're doing as of now of 2023. Okay, so India historical context. Inside of India, affirmative action began after the country gained independence in 1947, and because of centuries of caste discrimination, many groups they lacked access to education. So the Indian Constitution they created reservation policies for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backwards classes. And unlike the U.S. model, India's system is rooted in social justice and representation, not diversity. So India's Supreme Court also played a major role in shaping reservations. So in Indrasani case of 1992, the court upheld caste-based reservations but created the creamy layer rule, which prevented members of disadvantaged groups who are already economically advanced and receiving repeated benefits. So they really don't need it, but they're reaping all the good stuff. And the Najaraj, I have a hard time pronouncing it, so please don't mind me. But that case, it later addressed reservations and promotions and continued refining the system. So these cases, they show how India balances representation with fairness. Impact on access. So both countries they have increased educational access because of affirmative action, but in the United States the enrollment of Black, Hispanic, Native American students they have risen since the 1970s. In India, SC, ST, and OBC students their representation has improved significantly in universities, but however, both countries they still struggle with underrepresentation in elite institutions like Ivy League schools inside of the United States, such as like Harvard or Yale. I can't think of any more right now, but those are the ones at the top of my head. And top engineering and medical programs inside of India, they have low representation. Okay, socioeconomic mobility. Affirmative action, it also contributes to socioeconomic mobility. Students from marginalized backgrounds who gain university access often achieve higher income and better career opportunities, but criticism, it still remains. Inside of the United States, some argue that affirmative action undermines merit or causes reverse discrimination. So inside of India, the cream and layer debate, it highlights how benefits sometimes go to those who already advantaged within those marginalized groups. So these debates show how complicated it is to balance fairness with opportunity. Gender and intersectionality. Another important element of my research is intersectionality. In the United States, minority women they still face barriers in education and leadership, even with diversity programs. Inside of India, lower caste women they experience disadvantages tied to both their gender and their caste. So you're born into poverty, you're gonna die in poverty. You're born a women, they don't treat women with the respect and the equality, the equivalence of equal to a man is not the same over there as it is over here. But understanding those overlapping challenges is the most important because affirmative action is most effective when it addresses multiple layers of inequality and not just one layer. So, challenges and criticisms. There are strong debates about affirmative action in both countries. Inside of the United States, the recent Supreme Court ruling, it reflects increasing political and public pushback. And inside of India, debates continued about how much reservations is enough, like how much of reservation is enough, and whether the system should be expanded or just restructured all over. But both systems they face implementation challenges, questions about fairness, and political resistance. Policy reform and effectiveness. Despite controversies about them, research shows that affirmative action improves academic access and graduation outcomes. However, though, the long-term equality requires continuous reform. Like, it's never going to change. It's always going to be around. Some key reforms include using socioeconomic based approaches, strengthening K through 12 preparation to reduce educational gaps earlier, and using data driven systems to measure results fairly. So these steps they will help and they could help ensure that access is meaningful and equitable. So needless to say, both the United States and India, they use different affirmative action models, but both share the same end goal, increasing educational access for historically marginalized people. And each system, they have strengths and they have their weaknesses, but neither of them are perfect. So both remain essential tools for creating a more equitable higher education. So moving forward, both countries they'll still need to carefully reform to balance merit, diversity, and fairness. Lessons learned. This research has taught me how deeply it has taught me how deeply historical inequality shape modern education. And I also learned how important intersectionality is when discussing fairness and representation. Overall, this project has strengthened my research skills, most definitely my critical thinking skills and understanding of global approaches to education equality. And lastly, we have my APA references used in my research paper. I hope you enjoyed and did learn something fundamental from my research project.